It's Adam here for PC Monitors, and in this video I'm going to be taking a look at the OSD on-screen display menu system of the Dell Alienware AW2521HF. The OSD is controlled by pressable buttons and a little joystick at the rear of the monitor, toward the right side as viewed from in front. There is a power indicator, a power LED, which can be customized as part of the AlienFX lighting feature, so it's an RGB LED, and you can have that set to various colors, or you can have it switched off, as I'll show you in the OSD system shortly. I apologize for any moire from the camera, so you can see these weird little lines on the screen. That's unavoidable at this kind of distance from the camera. It's not on the monitor itself, so don't worry about that. If you twiddle the joystick in any direction or press it in, you get the main OSD system, which I'll go through very shortly. If you press the first button below the joystick, or any of the other buttons in fact below the joystick, it comes up with this little quick menu which shows you some of the main settings you've got and what you've got them set to, and it also clearly labels what the other buttons are going to do when you press them again. So that's X for exit, that's the joystick, which is the main menu system, and there are a few shortcut keys which you can customize in the OSD, as I'll show you shortly. The last one there by default is brightness, and I haven't changed that, but you can see that you can quickly adjust the brightness and the contrast of the screen by selecting that. So onto the main menu system itself. It has various different sections to it. The first one is game. You can adjust the preset mode used by the monitor, so the different presets have got various different ones here. Standard, which is the factory defaults. FPS, actually most of these I don't like very much. I mentioned that quite briefly in the written review, but they kind of just do various things to upset the image. So this looks quite washed out, to be honest, and over sharpened. And actually a lot of these apply the sharpness filter, which is different to the sharpness control that you can actually adjust in the monitor itself. So it's an additional sharpness filter and you can't actually get rid of it and can't counteract it properly. So it's a little bit ugly in my opinion. MOBA RTS, it just looks weird as well. RPG doesn't appeal to me. Sports, same thing. Just various different adjustments. So if you go on one of these, let's take the FPS one for example. It locks off a lot of your settings. So you can change the brightness and contrast still, and you can change the sharpness, although as I mentioned it doesn't actually help reducing that. You just end up with some elements looking over sharpened and some looking too soft. But what you don't have access to is the color channels, and these make all sorts of strange adjustments to the color temperature and color balance, which you can't account for by OSD adjustment. So I'm not going to spend much longer going through these, but the Game 1, Game 2 and Game 3 are more useful, and that's because they allow full customization in the OSD, and that means you can have 3 different presets, 3 different sets of settings, and you can customize various different things for each one. So if you click on one of these, so you click the joystick, you can see the various different settings you can assign here. Response time, gain, offset, hue, saturation and dark stabilizer. So I'll just go through these quickly. Response time, it's explored in the written review, fast, super fast or extreme. I prefer the fast setting. Gain, so this allows you to adjust the red, green and blue color channels. And this is the usual control you'd get on most monitors in terms of changing the red, green and blue color channels. This monitor also has offset controls. This is a bit different. This isn't the same as gain. Adjusting these adjusts the gamma curves for various different colors. But what I find is this monitor is very sensitive to offset adjustment. Some are more sensitive than others. So if you reduce all of these to 48, for example, you get a slight change in gamma, but it also starts to eat away at your dark detail levels. It blends lots of dark shades together more than it should, and more extreme adjustments really just increase this and really upsets your shade balance and shade variety. So don't go crazy with these offset controls. Hue, this allows you to adjust the hue of red, green, blue, cyan, magenta and yellow. So if you like to tweak things at this level, you can. So you can very much change the color representation in this way if you like to. This monitor doesn't really require this, but just according to taste you can do that. Same with saturation, red, green, blue, cyan, magenta and yellow. What I find is if you adjust these a little bit downwards, it reduces saturation, but you find that some shades really become quite anemic looking whilst others retain quite strong saturation. Even with red, green, blue, cyan, magenta and yellow control of the saturation, it isn't perfect and it's very difficult to get the balance right. If you increase the saturation, all you're doing is you're pulling things closer to the edge of the gamut, so you can see that red car there, but you also crush the shade variety because you're not expanding the gamut itself. So you're just crushing things together. You lose the shade variety. It does increase the saturation, so the red of that car, for example, becomes more saturated, but there are actually lots of red tones on that car, and a lot of them are lost when you increase this a lot. So again, if you want to increase this, by all means have a go if you prefer how it looks, but just be careful with your adjustments. Next is dark stabilizer. I'm sorry if you can't read this properly, the exposure's changed because I've got the lagom, that's lagom.nl, the black levels test there. And that's a good way of representing what this does. Be aware that the video doesn't show this accurately, so you can't see exactly what you'd see on the screen, but it will give you the relative effect. So if you increase this, it's a gamma enhancement. What it does is it adjusts the gamma curve and those dark shades are lifted up. So it increases your visibility in dark areas. It's actually a better implementation than some. It doesn't affect your black point, so you don't get a decrease in contrast. But it also has other effects, and this is a bit clearer if you're looking at mixed content rather than just darker shades. So if you increase this, you can see it affects the look of these brighter shades as well. It actually decreases the gamma overall and starts to look a bit washed out in other areas. So it's not just the dark shades it affects. The other thing is that it has a strange sharpness filter applied. And again, this is separate to the main sharpness control. So if you increase this, or in fact, if you activate this, it also over sharpens the image. Some people will quite like this look, other people not so much. I guess it's designed to more clearly accentuate the darker areas, which are highlighted more clearly, or something like that. But you know, it does the trick in terms of the competitive edge it can give there, but it does make various other adjustments as well. There's also, if you scroll down a bit further, there's comfort view, which is supposed to be a low blue light setting, but on my unit it really wasn't effective at all, and I explore that in the written review. Warm, which I also explore, not really effective as a low blue light setting. Cool, which just makes things look far too cool and really messes up the white point, so it's far too high. Custom color, which is much like the Game 1, Game 2 and Game 3, although on my unit at least, this was a better one to use because the gains, so the RGB channels, were at a better neutral position and you didn't need to reduce them so much to get to the target 6500K white point, which is a bit weird to be honest. I'm not really quite sure why they've done it like this, but it did mean that the contrast loss when you're adjusting the gains for the Game 1, Game 2 and Game 3 preset were greater than using custom color because you have to make greater adjustments and that does start eating away at your contrast levels. So it's a bit strange to be honest. But you can control various things here, gain, offset, hue and saturation with the custom color as well. So if I go back to Game 3, you'll see that there were some other settings, but these on custom color, you can actually change these as well. They're just found in different parts of the menu. So with all this said, what I actually do is I use the Game 2 preset. I think it's Game 2. I've got it set to one of the shortcut keys and I'll show you how to do this shortly. But I use the custom color for most of my use of the monitor and for my testing. But I also have a shortcut for Game 1, sorry. And this has manual adjustments made to the red, green and blue color channels. And this is effectively a low blue light setting, a very effective low blue light setting, I should say. And I explore this in the written review in the calibration section. I call it my relaxing evening viewing settings. So if you want to use that as a template for creating your own low blue light setting, then feel free to do that because the ones included with the monitor are quite pants. At least they were in the case of my unit. Next, you've got Game Enhance mode. These have various different settings, such as an on-screen timer. You can set that to various different values, so it counts down from whatever you set, so 30 minutes for example. You can't adjust the position on the screen, it's always in the top right. Next is frame rate, and although it says frame rate, this is actually a refresh rate display, so if you're using adaptive sync, it will change according to the frame rate of your content, so I'll just show you that quickly. So I'm now in a game, I've got the graphics settings quite high, so you can see that it certainly isn't 240 frames a second, it's kind of fluctuating all over the place, and it changes with quite a rapid polling rate to reflect the frame rate of the content. If you're not using adaptive sync, then it's always going to show whatever static refresh rate you've selected, so 240 Hz for example. There's also a display alignment feature, and what that'll do is it just puts various different markers on the screen to help you align your displays if you're using multiple displays. So you might have noticed not only can you not adjust the position of the timer and the frame rate display on the screen, you either have one or the other active. You can't have the timer and the refresh rate display on at the same time because it's in the same place on the screen and they just replace each other. Next option is FreeSync, and that allows you to activate or deactivate adaptive sync. It's technically adaptive sync because FreeSync's an AMD specific technology, whereas you can also use NVIDIA's G-Sync compatible mode, and this is controlled all the same way in the OSD. You need to have FreeSync on to enable adaptive sync and allow either of those technologies to be used. Response time setting, dark stabilizer, hue and saturation. I've already gone through these. I know it's a bit odd, hue and saturation are grayed out. That always seems to be the case. I'm not sure why they show them here on the menu. It might be a hangover from another model where this is how you adjust them, but you'll see you can adjust the hue and saturation if you go into the preset mode, but it's always grayed out in this section of the menu. Not sure why. Reset game will reset these settings to the factory defaults. Next is input source, does what it says on the tin, allows you to select the input used by the monitor, or you can have the monitor automatically selected. We can reset everything in this status here to the factory defaults with reset input source. AlienFX lighting, so now for something a little bit more interesting perhaps. You'll see there are various different settings here. The second one there, custom on, that happens if you're using software, the AlienFX software, or whatever the heck they call it, Alien Command Center or something like that, to control the AlienFX lighting, and I'll go through this very shortly. But if you're not using that and you're just using the OSD, you can have it set to color on, and this allows you to select a custom color for the lighting. So there are various different options there. I quite like this one, which is why I had it selected, but there are various other colors, and this affects the lighting color of the power LED, and there are also some RGB LEDs behind the monitor, so you can see there's a little bit of a glow under the monitor and above it, but this is only a gentle glow. It doesn't provide a strong aura around the screen, and that means it can't be used as a bias light or anything like that, so it doesn't really enhance your perceived contrast. It just gives you a slight effect if the room's dark enough. But this takes the form of an oval of light at the rear of the stand base, and there's also this little Alienware logo, little alien motif there, and these are all controlled at the same time, so you can't have one element a different color to the others. They're all controlled simultaneously. I'll just show you a couple of others. There's also red, which is good if you're feeling a bit evil. Some nice green shades as well. And the nice dark blue. So various different options there. There's also spectrum, and this is just a preset rainbow cycling feature which will go through various different colors. If you want to use the software to control the monitor, it's not actually the most straightforward process. It took me a while to actually get it all to work. But the first thing you need to do, you need to go on this website for the support page for the Alienware AW2521HF, and I'll put a link to this particular page in the description of the video. The first thing you need to do is you need to have the Alienware Gaming Monitor Control Center driver downloaded. You then need to have Alienware Command Center application downloaded. It also says there, expand for important information, and some of this you can just ignore because it's just a monitor you're using here. It's not for your system, but restart required. So after you've installed the Gaming Center driver and then you've installed the Alienware Command Center application, you will restart your computer. After you've done that, your computer's restarted, you have to make sure the USB cable's connected. You could probably do this before it's restarted, but this is just the order I did things in. You connect up the USB cable to the USB upstream of the monitor, the downstream goes to your system, and what you should find is there's a little dialog towards the right side, or there certainly was on Windows 10, which I've been using, and if you click on that, it opens up the application, but it doesn't install the application in the most straightforward way. It puts it on as an app rather than your kind of standard program. You can find it in the start menu, or you should be able to, by typing in Alien. So see there, Alienware Command Center app. The first time you open this, it'll ask you for your Microsoft credentials. It might ask you for your PIN, or if you're using that, or your password, which you'd use to log into Windows in the first place. And it'll then want you to install the AlienFX module, which is really the main reason you would have had this software in the first place for the monitor. So it's a bit strange that it doesn't just include that. So after you've authenticated yourself and you've got this FX module installed, the most important bit here is FX. And you'll see at the home there are various different game titles, so you can have different lighting assigned to different game titles if you like. And if you click Open Library, you can manually add extra titles if you want, or have it automatically scan for titles. They're not just game titles, you can add other applications as well. So I've clicked Manual there, you can see various different things. They're not all games, some of them are applications. Or you can click Browse and just find it yourself. And then the FX will show you what the lighting's doing. It will show you a preview of the alien head and the oval at the back of the monitor. You can then click Edit here. So I've got this one I've called Boring PCM. The reason I've called it that is just because it's white. It's plain white. I kind of like that. I'm quite unfussy, and I think it goes with the styling of the monitor. But if you want to be a bit more creative, you of course can. So you can have it set to various different colors, whites with the point right in the center there, or you can have it set to any other color you want. And again, it's all controlled at the same time. So you can't have the alien head and other elements doing their own thing. And if you don't just want a static color, you can also have it set to do various different effects. So there's morph, and that can go between one color and another color, whichever you set. I mean, there are various other ones. I could spend a while going through all of these, but you get the idea. There are various different light effects. What I would say is, I personally find a lot of these distracting. I just like a nice static light, and because most of the time I don't sit in a room that's this dark, I don't really see the lighting at the back of the monitor. So I would have preferred a stronger effect and one that would act as a bias light. But I do kind of like at least customizing that power LED. See, you can also adjust the brightness level. So if you don't want it to be quite as bright, then you can have it completely off if you want, or just very dim. And you then press Save Theme and it'll save it. And what will happen is you can close the software down and it'll have it set for you. The only thing is that if you then want to unplug the USB cable and just want to forget about the software, you can do that. But what will happen is if you then select a color in the OSD and you're customizing it through the OSD instead of the software, it'll then have custom set to off, and unless you've got the USB cable connected and the software is able to run, you're not going to be able to get back your custom setting. However, if you hook it up with the USB cable and you go back to the software, it'll get back your custom setting that you've saved. Oh, one last thing, reset AlienFX lighting. That resets everything to the factory defaults. Fairly self-explanatory. Next is display. Allows you to adjust things like the brightness, the contrast, aspect ratio, various different settings here. And these really apply if you're running a non-native resolution. So there's a 1:1 pixel mapping mode, for example. Wide will mean that it's using all of the pixels regardless of what the resolution you're using actually needs. Auto resize will try to keep the aspect ratio of the source resolution, and it'll use black bars to make sure that it doesn't really kind of stretch things out too much. 4:3 is forcing the 4:3 aspect ratio. Just to give you an example, looks roughly like that. But of course, if it's an actual 4:3 resolution, it won't look squished up like this. It'll actually look like it should. And 1:1, which won't do anything at the native resolution, of course, because it's 1:1 is exactly the same as wide or auto resize in this case. But if you're using a non-native resolution, that will only use the pixels called for in the source resolution. Next is input color format. RGB is the default, and that is what most people will be using. But if you need to use YPBPR, you can do that. And all it's going to do if you're not using that kind of signal is look extremely weird. So you'll know if you shouldn't be selecting that. And to be honest, it's very rare that people will want to use this on the monitor. So if you don't know what that is, or you don't need to use it, then just ignore this setting and just keep it set to RGB. Sharpness, you can adjust the sharpness in increments of 10, 50% is the default, and I'm quite happy with that, but people have different preferences, so you can soften that up a bit if you like, or you can have it over sharpened, depending on your preferences. And this might make sense for lower resolution content, for example, and you might want to increase the sharpness a little bit. Reset display, which resets everything to the factory defaults in this display menu. Next, there's audio. This monitor does not have integrated speakers, but it does have a 3.5mm headphone jack and also a 3.5mm audio output. So this will control the volume for anything connected to the 3.5mm headphone jack or 3.5mm audio line out. Or you can reset that to the factory defaults, which will just mean that the volume is set to 50. There isn't a mute function here, but if you set this to 0, it will mute it for you. Next up, there's menu that has various different options pertaining to the OSD itself. You can change the language that it's displayed in, various different options there. Transparency, so there's a transparency effect, you can increase that or decrease that. A timer, which is how long after the last button press before the menu automatically disappears and collapses in on itself, or you can just press the exit button a few times, or indeed if you twiddle the joystick left enough times it'll also disappear. Set menu, which will reset everything on this part of the menu system to the factory defaults. Personalize, so this is how you access the shortcut keys I was talking about before. So the 3 different shortcut keys, I had it set to custom color and game 1 because I like to use one as my main settings and the other for relaxing evening viewing. And the last one was brightness and contrast, and I believe that's what it was set to by default. But there are various other things you can set these to. So you can have it show all modes if you want to have the shortcut key allow you to change to any of the presets, or if you know which one you want to use, you can have it set to that. You can have it set to show all of the game enhanced settings, or you can have it so it just quickly allows you to turn on the frame rate counter or something like that, if that's a feature you use a lot. Activate or deactivate FreeSync quickly. Dark stabilizer adjustment, brightness or contrast, input source. And with input source, you can have it show all inputs or have it very quickly just select one input. So you could have one shortcut key for one input and one for another if you want to be really quick about selecting the inputs. Aspect ratio and volume. There's a USB setting off during standby. This will minimize the power consumption. If you have it on during standby, it will use a little bit of power. It's not much power, it's just really a little bit. I think it's just a fraction of a watt or something. But even if you don't have USB devices connected, then this does use a little bit of power. But if you want to have USB devices connected and you want to be able to use them when you turn the monitor off using the power button, so it's technically on standby or active off as Dell calls it, then you will need to have this set to on during standby. And you guessed it, reset personalization, so you can set all of this bit of the menu to the factory defaults. Next, there's others. So this is just various other settings which they couldn't really place anywhere else. Display info, that shows you the model, the input used, the current and maximum refresh rate, and resolution, I should say. The refresh rate displayed there will change depending on your frame rate if you're using adaptive sync. However, it only updates it once you actually go to that section of the menu, and then it will just stay there. So it's better to use the refresh rate display, the frame counter, if you want that kind of functionality. DDC/CI, part of the plug and play functionality of the monitor, which allows you to use software to control it, including Dell's Display Manager software, which I'll show you shortly. And you can download that from the same page you get the Dell Command Center software from, so there's a link to that page in the description of the video. LCD conditioning, what this will do is it will make the monitor cycle through various different colors, and it's designed to help reduce minor cases of image retention. This is quite a standard feature on many Dell monitors. It doesn't mean that it's necessarily going to have an issue with image retention, and I didn't have any particular issues with image retention when I was using the monitor, but it will go through various different shades, and that can help alleviate this. Or you can just go onto YouTube or something like that, and there are various videos which have a similar effect. It also has the firmware that your monitor is using, the service tag associated with it, reset the others menu to the factory defaults, or reset everything to the factory defaults. So moving on now to Display Manager software, Dell Display Manager. This isn't a completely comprehensive software, so it doesn't allow you to activate everything in the OSD and change everything in the OSD, but there is some unique functionality that's quite interesting. So when you first open the software, you get this little quick menu thing here, and that shows you the display, the resolution. You can change the resolution as well. What that'll do is it'll just open up the bit of Windows where you can actually change the resolution. You can change the brightness and contrast very easily. You can see it reacts very quickly to any adjustments you'll make there. There's also this little thing which allows you to quickly reorganize windows that are displayed on the screen. There's also a little bit in the system tray which allows you to quickly access Display Manager. So if you select this, it will show you guidelines, and this means that if you snap the windows to those positions on the screen, it'll allow you to quickly rearrange them in that way. Various other options, of course, you can do it with more than 2 windows, but given the resolution of the screen, I would not advise doing that. This one quickly snaps them to there. So you'll see once you've got them in the little sweet spot, you can then change the order of the windows quite easily by just selecting these different options. And of course, if I had 3 windows open, it would have another one there. So it's quite a useful feature if you like to organize your windows in various different ways. But again, given the resolution of this screen, there's only really so much you can do in terms of multiple windows on the screen. And of course, you can click Open Display Manager. And of course, you can click Open Dell Display Manager to get the full application. So it largely has a lot of the functionality I just showed you there. You can change to automatically change the preset according to different applications. If you like to use different presets for different applications, I don't like to do that, so I have no need to do this. But if you press Configure, it actually goes on to the next tab, Auto Mode, and that's where you assign different presets for different applications. Or Manual Mode, that allows you to just select the active preset for everything. Brightness and contrast adjustment there. Auto Mode, which I just showed you. Easy Range, which I've already gone through. So they call that setting Easy Range. Input Manager, this allows you to change the name of everything. So if you have various systems connected and you want to remember what's connected to what, you can just change the name of this. So if you had a PC and a console, for example, connected at the same time, you could have something like that. You can also assign shortcut keys to switch the input. So you can have it set to Control Alt and whatever you select. So Control Alt and 1, Control Alt and 2 to switch between these sources. So that's quite a neat little feature if you like to do that quickly on the fly. Change active input, quite obvious what that's going to do. I've only got my PC connected through DisplayPort, so that's all I can look at the moment. Options, so this has a few other options. There's Power Nap, which is quite an interesting one. This will allow you to reduce the brightness of the screen when the screensaver activates. Who the heck uses screensavers these days? I don't know. But if you press Configure, it opens up this thing which is a complete blast from the past screensaver. Long gone are the days of the good old 3D text and 3D flower box. I'm sure some of you are too young to even know what the heck I'm talking about there, but I used to love these screensavers when I was younger. But there's only blank photo gallery and photos on Windows 10 by default. But what you could do is set this to a blank screen, then have the screen dim when that activates. But to be honest, what's the point in having the screen dim? You might as well put the display to sleep when the screensaver activates. I guess that might take a little bit longer to resume. But to be honest, this kind of functionality is built into Windows anyway, in terms of putting the computer to sleep. This seems like a bit of a hangover from the days when people actually used screensavers. You can have a program shortcut key, so that means when you press Control Shift and D or whatever you happen to have selected here, it'll open up your display manager quickly. So if I close it and press Control Shift and D, it comes up again. When I say close, I mean it was open in the background, but it just wasn't active, so to speak. You can have easy arrange shortcut keys. So if you press Control Shift and Num 7, it's a bit of a weird one, but I'll try that. Control Shift Num 7. Control Shift and Num 7. Nothing seems to happen. Never mind. Control Shift Num 0 as well. I don't know if it's something weird with my numpad, it just doesn't seem to be working, but never mind, I'm not really sure exactly what this does. Dark Stabilizer, if you want to use that. It's grayed out at the moment. And that's because I'm using a preset which it doesn't seem to like to use this with, but you can actually activate the Dark Stabilizer in the custom color preset, so I'm not really sure why this is grayed out. But even so, let's just play with it. Change this to game 1. You'll see it's no longer grayed out. So let's set this to Control Alt and A. So it does have to be Control Alt and something else in this case. At least I think it does. Oh no, Control. So you can have it Control Shift and something if you prefer, or Control Alt. It does need to be Control plus another key though. So Control Alt and A, sorry about this. Yep, then every time I press that, it changes the dark stabilizer setting. So this could be useful if you like to quickly activate this in a game or change the level of dark stabilization. And that's really all there is to the OSD on-screen display menu system of the Dell Alienware AW2521HF. Be sure to check out the full review on PCmonitors.info. There's a link to that in the description of the video, alongside information about how you can support the work that we do.